watching Game Devs of Color Expo 2025 with me, the Purple Sharpie, and I'm here with yet another developer interview. I am joined today by the CEO of Borderless Studios, Mac Kendima. How are you doing today, Mac?
Doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I understand we're actually here today to talk about you all's latest project that's currently in development, Clock Out at 2. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So you are an Afro-Latina woman named Celia who has to survive the workday, and you have to deal with terrible bosses, conniving coworkers over and over again while you maintain stress and avoid being sent to HR.
I'm not excited at all about examining this hostile work environment, but I am excited to show you the trailer. Let's roll it. So Mac, let's address the elephant inside of the room. The main character, Celia, is an Afro-Latina woman inside of the sprawling urban world of New York City, where she experiences a multitude of microtransactions from specifically non-POC individuals. You yourself are not necessarily Latina or femme-presenting. How did this character come to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think often than not, right, when it comes to representation, we can feel, we as in like melanated people, we can feel that things are not authentic, right? And often than not, when we look behind the scenes, we don't see people who look like us creating people who look like us, right? So it feels a little unauthentic, right? With the game, how it was created was through my experiences in the workplace, but at the same time, my team is very diverse. So our main artist is Latina. We have many different people from different backgrounds. So then presenting as well as people from different cultures. And we all work together to make sure the narrative that's being written is authentic so that when people do relate to it, do feel it when they go behind the scenes, they can feel like, oh, okay, perfect. This is real. I haven't been blackfished or catfished, as they say.
No, 100%. And as we move forward in 2025, the socioeconomic political structure that we especially find in the United States of America is ever commonly being used to remove the native voices of the stories that are being told. So I'm really happy to hear that you had authentic resources on your team that were able to basically create the narrative design for this game. Let's actually go deeper into the narrative design of the game. Narrative games live and die by their story. As we saw in the trailer, Clock Out at 2 follows Celia through a toxic work environment as she manages stressful and awkward situations. Why does Clock Out at 2 focus on this lens?
Initially, the game was created as a game jam, and really it was supposed to be a fantasy horror. And in this fantasy horror, we wanted to bring awareness to these different isms, these microaggressions, but as more fantastical. So these ideas or these concepts would become monsters, and they would hunt people based on their ism. Right? Unfortunately, during the production of this game jam, my author, Celia, who's currently my sister-in-law now, she was going through some real world workplace trauma, right? And so she had the boomer, she had the quote unquote ally. And it was when I heard these stories, I was like, I want to do something for right? And so we combined the two ideas, and that's how Clock Out at 2 was born.
You've actually showcased this game not exclusively inside of the American diaspora, but also inside the Japanese diaspora, specifically going over to a Japanese expo for job seekers to showcase this game. And you received a lot of feedback from people that were attending that expo. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your experience there?
For those who don't know, I'm actually based here in Japan. I've been here for about 8 to 9 years, but I call Minnesota home. And so for me, initially, right, a lot of the experiences in the game is when I was an IT consultant in Minnesota, right? And Minnesota is known as I guess the Minnesota nice, right? So a lot of people are like passive aggressive, right? They don't say it so directly to you, but you know what's going on. From those experiences, right? I created the story from that lens. But being here in Japan, right? I want to market here as well, but I don't know how relatable that story is, right? I always feel that, and this is very unfortunate. Sometimes when there is like a black character or like a melanated character, I feel like there's sometimes a automatic push. And so I wanted to see how well, this story was receptive. And I thought the Gaijin Pod Expo or the HR Expo was the best place. And I was right. People there were saying, wow, I actually just left a work environment exactly just like this. That's why I'm here. And being able to hear that not just from Western people, but people from Korea, people from China. They started telling me about their own work life culture. It's very hard in Korea, right? People were telling me about, I think it's called 996. Don't quote me on that. In China, but basically it means you work 9 hours every day for, I think, 6 days a week. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know this culture of working to you die, basically, right? Working you to death, right? I didn't know that was such a thing. So I'm really glad I went to that expo, and it really opened it up because now in the game, initially it was only supposed to be for that Midwest kind of culture, but I've expanded the universe to have branches, and in these branches you'll be able to travel to different I guess countries and experience their microaggressions.
Oh, wow. I want to pull the conversation to a few specific references I actually saw inside of the game itself. We opened up this interview with a Office Space reference, kind of referencing, the old early 2000s, 90s show that talked about office life and kind of made a caricature of what a manager looks like in that scenario. You seemingly did similar when yourself and your team created the Briar Work Management Program, which is the program that Celia uses to schedule her day and do her job. I noticed that management system seemed strikingly similar to Trello, as well as programs like Slack. Was this intentional? Was this kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying like, hey, all this hustle culture that we're using and implementing inside of these management programs is ultimately becoming a tool to cause burnout? Was that the conversation, or was there a different message there?
You're right on the money. Right now, the Bureau management system, a lot of people will think of Trello, Jira, right? And having the story told through this management system felt very organic. And also having it feel like it controls your life, right? Even as like the CEO, I often tell people, hey, make a Trello card. Hey, make a Trello card. It doesn't exist if there's not a card, right? And it's a little scary because those cards really do manage your life. If those cards don't exist, but if there is something going on with AI, there's something going on with management behind the scenes, right? You don't know how those cards are going to be written, right? And you don't know the intent behind those cards of how they're going to be written. So you go to the card, you read it, you don't think twice. You've been assigned it, you're like, okay, this is my job. But what happens with those cards become more and more insidious, right? What if they tell you, hey, please start policing the black and brown bodies? What if you need to start calling out your coworkers to make sure that they fall in line, right? How much do you question? So being able to have that conversation about how technology is kind of shaping our lives, and at the same time also kind of talking about that tongue-in-cheek kind of office comedy, right? Throughout the game, there will be several quote unquote, I guess, puns, right? So there's like also Alexa, right? Alexa, and we're hoping to continue that kind of narrative, I guess, fun throughout the game.
It's very satirical in nature, and I personally appreciate it as someone who tends to not necessarily shy away from political themes, but also really, really appreciate good commentary on current culture. So I think, hole in one there, truthfully. Throughout Celia's day, there are a series of microaggressions from other characters in the story. Miss Darcy pushes you over the edge by threatening a, quote, trip to HR, end quote, for not integrating with the company culture. And, notably, Celia doesn't have the option to respond due to stress. How does the stress mechanic affect the story and the choices that the player can make?
When it comes to stress, we really wanted to make it so that it is perspective. And I think that is something that is very important to me, because our perspective is often than not ignored and pushed to the side, right? If we say, hey, this is happening, we are immediately gaslighted. And so what I wanted to do in the game, because of the awareness aspect, is that I wanted to showcase, one, what does it look like when someone is traumatized, right? Going through trauma, right? When someone is in a stress state, right? The world looks very different compared to how it looks like for someone else who's not stressed, under that constant pressure. And then as you become more stressed, you see that you start seeing more and more monstrous things, or maybe you start seeing things for what they really are. And I wanted to give the players the ability to understand that you won't be gaslighted, right? It's not that, oh, maybe this person is thinking of something else. Maybe they meant something else. No, it is exactly how it is being shown, right? So the more microaggressions that are done to you, the more monstrous these come to become, and it becomes very easy to identify it.
My final question is regarding the development of Clock Out at 2, which was developed, as I understand, in both Ren'Py and Twine, with Twine focusing on the narrative design of the game and Ren'Py essentially being the engine that handles a multitude of other mechanics. Twine is a game engine well known for its ability to create sprawling stories and visual novels. How specifically did Twine help you tackle branching narrative paths in this game?
When it comes to Twine, when it's a linear story, I think it's very easy to see the happiness, right? And you know exactly where you're going. But when you're creating a branching path game, as well as like a roguelike game, right? When something starts, when something ends, we don't really know. And so with that, we wanted to outline the whole narrative using Twine. And using Twine, we're able to visually see how the story is being branched.
It seems as though Twine was the perfect engine to help you tell this very important story regarding workplace culture and the general frustration as well as stressful factors of microaggressions. Mac, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, and please enjoy the expo.
I will. Not because you said it, but because I'm contractually required to, as a matter of fact. So joke's on you. But the joke's not on you, dear viewer. You can wishlist Clock Out at 2, currently in development on Steam right now, link below. And I invite you to join me and Mac for the remainder of this Game Does of Color Expo 2025. Thanks so much for watching. Please stay tuned.